So, to start off, before we begin, I just kind of want to introduce myself really quickly. So, my name is Dylan Picht. I am a student at the University of Central Oklahoma. I'm a sophomore this year, and I'm studying criminal justice and forensic science. And I'm taking a fundamentals of speech class. And right now, we are on our persuasive speech right now. And basically, what we're doing is persuading our audience about a nonprofit organization of our choice. And so I chose this organization, right, the Oklahoma Guardian Ad Litem Institute, because I just think that, it's a good cause, right? And, I want to persuade my audience to kind of, you know, give attention to this organization, right? And so to kind of start off, just to clarify, are you the one that actually kind of kickstarted this organization in the first place?
Yes.
That's crazy. um, so
I have no idea how crazy that is.
yeah, like that's insane that I actually get to talk to you because you're the one that kind of, planted the seed that is, this organization. So, you know, to kind of go into your background, you first started as a district attorney, right, for Oklahoma County. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you did that for a couple years, right? And then, you slowly wanted to kind of go into family law, right? And the first question that I wanted to ask you was, usually with these nonprofits, I feel like there's usually kind of, conflict in the first place that would make you want to kind of make this type of organization, right? So what I want to ask you is, you know, were there any issues or scenarios from the past that maybe sparked your kind of, interest of forming this group, this organization?
I mean, is your question, what is it that made me want to start this
Yeah.
nonprofit?
Yeah.
Well, all right, so I'm an attorney, and believe it or not, I became an attorney because I wanted to help people. That was my thought. My undergraduate degree is in law enforcement administration.
Yeah.
And so I thought when I was your age,
Mhm.
I would maybe be a police officer. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I wanted to serve and protect and help
Yeah.
out society.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been in I guess that's been in my blood for many years.
Right.
And then I loved being in the district attorney's office. I really thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life once I was there.
Yeah.
And that was great. You never know what life has in store for you. And there were things that I just had to leave. So I left. And when I started, then I thought, how else can I help people? I'm going to do family law.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any experience in that. I'm very fortunate that my parents are still married.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and I wasn't married at the time that I left the district attorney's office and started doing family law, but I did that for quite some time. I was in private practice for myself. I did get married, and my husband and I were in private practice together. And my husband, as it turns, my husband is also a lawyer. He started his career in the public defender's office in Oklahoma County as a criminal defense attorney. He's now a federal defender. And so he also has a desire to help people in different ways. But I kept going I was fortunate that in my private practice, I had a lot of people who were fairly well off financially. And so you probably have not ever been to court. I don't know, but what happens is cases are set, and they call the docket at like 9 a.m. and then they call the docket again at 1:30. And so they'll set 15, 20 cases for hearing all at 9 a.m. and then another 15 or 20 cases for hearing at 1:30. So you go to court for your case, and you sit there while all these cases are being called, and the judge is having all these hearings, and everyone's sitting there waiting for their case to be called.
Right.
And so I was going with my clients, and a guardian ad litem is basically an investigator in a case to advocate for children's best interest, right? So when you have a family law case, you've got a mom and a dad, and they're fighting over custody and visitation, and the judge is like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know who's telling me the truth. I need somebody who's an independent third person to go investigate and report back to me what's really happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can be a private guardian ad litem. In Oklahoma, in a family law case, a guardian ad litem has to be an attorney.
Right.
So you can hire an attorney to be that guardian ad litem. So I had lots of cases where mom and dad are fighting over custody and visitation, and we went and hired another attorney to be the independent guardian ad litem.
Right.
And I spent several years sitting in court watching people who didn't have any money arguing their cases, and they're representing themselves because they didn't have money for an attorney. They certainly didn't have money to hire an attorney for their children.
Right.
And they had the worst stories. I was fortunate that I'm going into court arguing about, who has the nicer home and who can provide more for these children.
Right.
But there are these two parents arguing over and over about, horrible abuse, drugs, no food, animal feces, rats, bugs, just terrible conditions.
Right.
I'm looking around, and I kept saying to my colleagues, like, that case needs a guardian ad litem. Like, where's the guardian ad litem?
Yeah.
And there wasn't one. And so then I'm also a member of, so the state bar association has a family law section.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my practice throughout my legal career has been in Oklahoma County. So I'm a member of the state family law bar association and the Oklahoma County family law association. And so I was going to monthly meetings at both of these places, talking to other lawyers about where are guardian ad litem for like poor people? Like, what do you do about these poor people? I've heard these horrible stories. And the answer is just there weren't any. And so I started talking to colleagues about, somebody, there should be some organization or something to help out these kids who are in these horrible conditions in these poor families.
Yeah.
And, everybody's response was the same, was like, yes, you're right, there should be. And so then I started asking the question over time, like, but, who's going to do that?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And the answer was somebody ought to do that. And
yeah. Yeah.
So my husband and I used to ride to work together because we worked a block apart at that time. And so we were riding to work together one day, and I said, I don't know if I'm going through a midlife crisis or what's happening, but I'm not like super happy in what I'm doing. And I think I want to help these poor kids.
Yeah.
And so I was having the same conversation with him that I kind of had with you. Like, there's these horrible things happening. There's nobody to help them. And I had talked with some colleagues about like what kind of organization would do that. And everybody was saying, oh, that would be a nonprofit and this and that. So in this conversation with my husband, I said, so I think I'm going to shut down my practice and start a nonprofit. And I'm sure I shouldn't admit this, but I don't know. I had never served on a nonprofit. I didn't know anything about nonprofits.
Yeah.
And so that's what he said to me. He said, well, what do you know about nonprofits? I mean, what do you mean you're going to start a nonprofit? And I said, I know nothing about nonprofits, but I know this. I'm not an idiot. I made it through undergraduate school. I made it through law school. There are books about nonprofits, and I can read. And so, and I said, and look around, there's like all of these, like hundreds of thousands of nonprofits. It can't be that difficult.
Right.
And so that's how it happened.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it is that difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
But
no, I can't imagine. No, I mean,
so
and
that's how it started.
I mean, that's an amazing story, and I'm sure you are extremely busy with working this stuff. And are you still, as of right now, a guardian ad litem, or are you? You are. Okay. So the next kind of question that I want to go into is kind of just guardians ad litem in general. So they are court appointed attorneys, right? And they represent a third party, right? Being the child. So what I want to ask is, can a parent, you said that there are private guardian ad litems, right? So can they request a guardian ad litem to kind of go into the home and investigate the child? You look into all sorts of things. You go into the child's, like, I don't know, like medical records and things like that, and just kind of, if they thrive in the home or not, just kind of seeing how they're doing, right? So can the parents kind of have that request to kind of have someone go in there?
Yes. So it's a technically a guardian ad litem is appointed by the court. However, anyone can request the court appoint a guardian ad litem. So a parent
Okay.
can request it, the court can request it on their own. And so judges who handle family law cases, a lot of them, without anybody asking at all, the minute a parent starts saying, oh, there's abuse or neglect going on, a judge will say, stop, I'm going to appoint a guardian ad litem.
Yeah.
I have lots of cases where somebody has filed a motion, a parent has filed a motion to appoint a guardian ad litem.
Yeah. And so let's say there is just a lot going on, right? And you have enough kind of, I guess, probable cause to really investigate, right? Can you sort of kind of go into the home and the parents are kind of like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? Or is it more of like, you have to have their consent to kind of go and invest in the child's interests?
Well, so the order appointing, so when a court appoints a guardian ad litem, the court will enter an order
Right.
appointing a guardian ad litem. And generally the courts will allow whoever's going to be the guardian ad litem to give a proposed order to the court. So the order appointing the guardian ad litem generally will say that the guardian ad litem has the authority to inspect the home, talk to people, and the parents are to cooperate with the guardian ad litem.
Right. Yeah. Usually if it's an order from the court, I mean, it is something that you have to comply to, right? It's not really wise to kind of reject it and make it difficult for that person. So I can understand that.
It's not wise, but people do reject it. I've had people say they're not going to let me into their home. I have.
Yeah.
But the minute I report that to the court, and generally the judge will say, until you let the guardian ad litem in your home, you're not going to see your children. And so usually at that point, they will let me in their home.
Yeah, I would hope so. Geez, I mean, but so, okay. So I have had some experience. I've never been to court, but I know that there are two different kinds of like courts, right? I mean, you have your criminal courts, right? But then you have like civil courts that kind of deal with these family issues, right? So what I want to ask you is, when you were a district attorney, you were mainly working on like misdemeanor cases and even murder cases, right? So what I want to ask you is, are there any kind of core differences in, criminal courts and, family courts?
Yes.
Lots. Yeah.
Lots. I mean, well, not that you want a law school class, but so there's a civil procedure code.
Mm-hmm.
That's the laws that are the procedure the laws that govern the procedure you follow in civil court. And then there's a criminal procedure code. So there's two separate codes on how you proceed and what you do. So that's one difference. Mm-hmm. Another difference is, so there's a discovery code, which is the laws that govern what evidence is admissible,
right,
in court. Mm-hmm. And there are various exceptions to the rules depending upon what court you're in, whether it's a civil court or a criminal court. So those are different as well. A big difference is in a criminal court, when your case is being tried, you're entitled to a jury trial, and that's a trial in front of your peers. In a misdemeanor case, that's 6-man jury. There's 6-person jury. So, and in a felony criminal case, it's a 12-person jury. In family court, you're not entitled to a jury trial at all. Yeah. It's just a trial to the judge.
Right.
So there's that difference as well. I mean, you have one person deciding your fate as opposed to 6 or 12.
A jury, right? Yeah. And, I probably should have told you, but I mean, I am, taking a criminal procedure class, and, I am more so focused on the forensic track, because I want to be a crime scene investigator. But, on the side, defense attorneys and things like that, being in the court was also something that I was heavily interested in. And that is definitely something that I'm still very much interested in if my first option doesn't necessarily work out. But yeah, are both court systems just as intimidating? I mean, I heard criminal courts are pretty scary.
And did you hear that from a defendant or?
No, I mean, so just from my criminal procedure, teacher, she's a former FBI agent. So, she was in the court a lot, and she said that it could kind of be a little intimidating, especially if it's a criminal court. There's a lot going on. But basically, to kind of segue into my next question, though, throughout this whole process, right? So a guardian ad litem is sort of they're kind of taking the place of the child in the courtroom, right? So is the child ever a part of this court process? Like, are they ever going to be going to trial, or is this more so the guardian ad litem is just kind of translating what that child in the home said to them, and then that's what they are in turn kind of showing to the court? Is it more like that?
So the guardian ad litem is supposed to be the voice of the child. So the guardian ad litem is supposed to report to the court. There's statutes in Oklahoma that they're preference statutes. So if a child is of sufficient age and maturity to express a preference about custody and visitation, then the court is supposed to hear the preference of the child. And in Oklahoma, there's a presumption that if a child is 12, they're of sufficient age and maturity to express a preference. And people bastardize that statute all the time because it doesn't say that at 12 you get to pick.
Right.
It says at 12 or whatever age is that you're mature enough to express a preference, the court has to hear the preference of the child. But the statute also says that the court never has to follow the preference of the child. The court always has to do what's in the child's best interest, regardless of their preference.
Right.
And so, that statute does not say that a child has to express it themselves. So, most of the time, the courts will ask the guardian ad litem, what is the preference of the child? And so the guardian ad litem will speak for the child. This is the preference and why. And you are entitled to ask the court to speak to the children directly. And that is never done in the courtroom. They don't sit on the stand. They're not cross-examined. That's done in chambers with the judge.
Okay.
And there is a specific statute that talks about having a court reporter there, taking down what's being said in chambers, because the parents aren't allowed in chambers when the judge talks to the child. So the judge, if there's a guardian ad litem, the judge will generally have the guardian ad litem in there to make the child feel comfortable.
Right. Yeah.
The judge can have the attorneys present. The parents are not allowed to be present, but usually the judge will just have the guardian ad litem, the child, and the judge, and a court reporter.
Gotcha.
In there taking down what's said. So generally what I do with children who are, I would say mature enough, certainly 12 and over, I usually ask them if the judge wants to, do you want to talk to the judge?
Right. Yeah.
And I'll tell the judge, hey, this child wants to talk to you. And so I usually ask children. I didn't used to. I used to tell children, look, you're not going to come to the courthouse. That's what I'm here for. You tell me, I tell the judge, we're good.
Right.
And then I had a judge tell me that I don't get to make that call because I'm not the judge. The judge gets to make that call, and the judge talks to kids in every case. So, lesson learned. Now I ask children, number one, do you want to talk to the judge? And number two, if the judge wants to talk to you, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Because some kids will, I had a child the other day, she's 13, and she said, every time my parents come back from court, they each say the other lied. And I want to go to court because I want to listen and I want to be able to tell who's lying.
Yeah.
Because they keep telling me the other one's lying, so I want to listen. So I want to go to court. And I said, okay, well, they don't let children sit in the courtroom. So I will let the judge know that you want to come to court. And I said, and I usually ask children, is it okay if I tell the judge why you want to come?
Yeah.
Because I don't lie to children. I say, because when I tell the judge that, your mom and dad will be there. So they will hear.
Yeah.
And so I told the judge that, and he, of course, reamed both parents.
Yeah. It's just interesting that you say that because, the way I see it is like the child is kind of like that person that kind of helps unfold everything that's going on, so to speak, because parents do, adults kind of have a more sense of like, I can kind of deceive these people by lying a little bit. And the child is kind of there to be like, that's not what's going on though. Like, this is what's really happening. So they're kind of like that person that just unmasks everything. Right. And I think that's why guardian ad litems, in my opinion, are extremely important, because, me personally, before I found this organization, I didn't even know that a child could even have legal representation. I just didn't know, and obviously, I have two, my parents are extremely healthy and, loving. They've been in a relationship for such a long time. And so, I never even knew what a guardian ad litem was because we never needed one, So I think it's important for people to know about this organization, especially just guardian ad litems in general, because children really are, they give the full story, if that makes sense. I feel like they are kind of like that, input.
Well, and they're not property. They're human beings.
Yes.
And if we're talking about what are we going to do with this life, this human being, shouldn't they have some input?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And
shouldn't we hear from them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I feel like, just in my opinion, I feel like not a lot of people really take that into consideration, so I feel like, you emphasizing it is extremely important. And so one thing that I do kind of want to ask is, so as much as I think guardian ad litems are important, you've been doing this job for an extremely long time. And so are there any sort of, I don't know, like misconceptions among the general public that, I don't know, while doing this research, I saw that some people think that guardian ad litems don't actually care for the children and that they're doing it for the money and things like that. You've been doing this for such a long time and you're part of this nonprofit. How does it make you feel hearing those things, if you have?
Well, I'm a lawyer first.
Yes.
And so I've heard all of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a lawyer since 97. What is that? 24 years, something like that. So, I mean, I've heard all of those things. And if they say that everyone says lawyers do it for the money or whatever.
Yeah.
And if they're saying guardians ad litem do it for the money, it's because they're lawyers. I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I think that just as in every profession, there are people who have caused us to have that reputation. We should, as lawyers, we should police ourselves better. There should be consequences for people who act badly. I think in every profession, there should be consequences for people who act badly, because it's bad for society and it's bad for our profession.
Yeah.
And I think people who say bad things about guardians ad litem either say it out of ignorance about not knowing, or, I don't know if you have children. I do. And you know, if somebody told me I couldn't see my child when I wanted to see my child, and my child couldn't live with me, I would be very angry. And so the unfortunate side effect of the split of a family is that a child is a single human being that cannot live in two places at once.
Right.
And so when your family splits and you go to court and you ask for a judge to enter an order about where your child is going to live and how often you're going to see your child, that's exactly what a court is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably, one or both of the parents is very upset about the outcome,
mm-hmm.
right? Because they each want that child with them at all times. Legal disputes are about people who can't agree on things. And generally, if you're at a trial, the issue is two sides both think that they're absolutely right. And those two sides cannot both be right. One side is either wrong or they're both a little wrong. And the truth is somewhere in the middle. And so many parents get upset with me for
mm-hmm.
reporting what's happening in their home because they don't want people to know. They want people to know if they're acting badly or doing drugs or drinking or abusing their children.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when I expose that, they're very angry. And so a lot of people get mad at the Guardian Ad Litem because they expose what's going on.
Yeah. And, one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on is, to kind of go back on the importance of, these specialists, I feel like as a child, from my experience anyway, I didn't feel like I had that much control over my life because of how young I was, and so obviously when I would think if there's some kind of dispute going on, you want it to stop, right? You want everyone to be happy, right? But, because you're just a child, your parents probably wouldn't really listen to you, right? Because you're just so young. And I feel like when you're so young, your opinions aren't as validated because it's just with age, right? I mean, that's kind of something that I've kind of, learned. I mean, my parents are great parents, but, I think having someone that will step in for them and really help them out, get them out of that situation, because, some of these legal disputes, I'm sure, get really bad. Abuse is something that if a child goes through it long enough, it can really affect them for their entire life, and I think having that guardian ad litem step in and help them get out can really kind of erase that future trauma that may have been caused, right? And so, to kind of segue into my next question though, so your organization is helping children, right? That is the main focus, right? And with my speech, when it comes to nonprofits and contributing, some people may want a reason as to why it would benefit them, right? People my age and older. So in your opinion, it's helping children a lot, but in what ways could it help people my age and older? Do you think?
In what way could our nonprofit?
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping. So not only do we speak for children, but we also get services for children. So we get children into counseling.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend counseling in every case that I have, to help deal with, what's going on in their lives. I have a lot of training on adverse childhood experiences. I don't know if you've heard of that, but anyway, there's been a lot of research and studies about adverse childhood experiences and how things that happen to children in their childhood affect them long term,
mm-hmm.
not only mentally but physically.
Mm-hmm.
So it was have you heard of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences?
I have not.
Okay, so that was a study done by the Kaiser Permanente group. It's been several years now, but what they started studying, it was actually medical doctors, people coming in an obesity clinic, and they started talking to them about their life experiences, and they noticed that a lot of these people coming into these obesity clinics with not only obesity issues, but heart issues, a lot of diabetes, a lot of medical issues, that they had these adverse childhood experiences that were never dealt with. And never addressed, and they manifested themselves into, some of them had eating disorders, but others just had, real life heart issues, high blood pressure, all of this stuff that they have did over years of study to determine that a lot of it arose out of these adverse childhood experiences. And so they started collecting information on what are these adverse childhood experiences that these people have in common, that have all of these medical issues. And they came up with 10 adverse childhood experiences. And the more out of that 10 adverse childhood experiences that people had, the more health conditions that they had. Now, that hurt them as adults. That also, is a drain on society and a drain on resources and all of these things. But of the 10 adverse childhood experiences that they were questioning everyone about, there was abuse in the home, drug use in the home, a family member going to prison. But one of them was also, did your parents ever separate, split up? Did you come from a broken home? So
yes, yep.
So that's a 1 out of 10 adverse childhood experience. So every child that I deal with has at least a 1 out of 10 adverse childhood experience, because every child that comes through here, their parents have split. Most of them have 4 and 5 adverse childhood experiences by the time they get to me. And I've had some as high as 9.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. And so those people will be you someday, right? The children in my case will be your age, my age. And what I hope to do, and how it benefits people your age, is hopefully we're helping society out a bit. We're helping these kids get help before it's too late, before they have health problems, and they function in society better. I mean, you don't want to go be a crime scene investigator with somebody who has a lot of mental health issues and health issues. You want to have coworkers who are healthy. You want to maybe someday have a relationship with somebody who's healthy. And you want to, if you have health issues, there to be resources for you. Yeah. And so in Oklahoma, we have such a high rate of divorce. We have a high rate of children born out of wedlock. And if we are interested in reducing those, you've got to start with these children who are coming from that, to show them there's another way, right? You're not destined for that. And you can be healthy, and you have a voice, and you matter. Yeah. We have a high suicide rate. I mean, we have a lot of negative things in the state of Oklahoma that, sometimes by the time you're 40 years old, maybe you're a little too late, but we can help out. And I suppose that's how it can help.
I mean, I think that you explained it in a much better way than I thought. I think I was thinking about this answer as well, and I pretty much came up with the same thing you said. I mean, it's helping our society, right? Because, if a child is abused at such a young age, you have PTSD, right? That can last for your entire life, and it's uncontrollable, and I think that by getting these kids out of the home, right, and putting them in a safe space, you're preventing any further harm from happening. And one question that I want to ask you is, has there ever been a home where, abuse or some kind of issue wasn't actually caused by the parents, but maybe another child? Because there have been, I've seen interviews with people who have formed PTSD from, someone was sexually assaulted by their brother or something, right? Have there ever been cases like that you've witnessed?
Yes.
Yeah. And can a guardian ad litem also step in when it comes to a matter like that as well?
Yes. I mean, I have more than one case right now where that unfortunately happened.
Yeah.
And so usually the cases that I have like that, usually what I'm seeing is it's not a biological sibling.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
is most of the time, the cases I've seen, it is a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a step parent's sibling.
Right.
And I'm just very frank with people. I tell parents, you have reached a fork in the road. It is not the fork in the road that you want, and you have to make a decision between your child and your significant other. Mm-hmm. It's not fair. I get it. But I'm here for your child and nobody else. And so you're going to have to make a decision, because you have reached the point where you're either going to be with your child and not your significant other mm-hmm. and their children, or you're going to be with your significant other and their children and not your child. And it's a crappy decision, but there's where you are. And so the choice is yours, because if you don't pick your child, I will ask the court to pick your child.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it has to come down to. I mean, you are trying to give the child the best life possible, right? So, and that's really, the big reason why I took such a liking to your organization. And, the last question that I have for you is, we can donate, right? Obviously, you have a donate button on your website, but I also wanted to ask you, what are some other ways that we can help your organization? I know that you have training programs, right, for people that maybe want to go into this type of career, right? But, you have your training, but what other ways can people like me help your organization, kind of spread your influence and things like that? What kinds of things can we do to help you?
Well, you can let people know about us.
Yes.
You can, we're a relatively new organization, because we were formed in 2016.
Gotcha.
Which makes us kind of a baby. So a lot of people don't know about us. So you can tell people about us. You can educate people. You can, not just us, but Guardians Ad Litem in general. Mm-hmm. There's so many people don't know what it is. They've never even heard of it. They don't understand it. Mm-hmm. And so you can help educate, because if our organization can't help, maybe somebody else can. So you can spread the word. You can tell people about us. You can tell other people to donate to us. I honestly think that Guardians, I'm biased, but I think they're so important that there should be a law that says if children are at issue, there has to be a Guardian Ad Litem. Mm-hmm. And so, you can, somebody asked me one time if we're a government agency, which we're not, but I think it would be great if the government took enough interest in the children mm-hmm. to form an agency to ensure that every child, not just in the state of Oklahoma, but everywhere had a voice.
Yeah. And, I think that, you do acknowledge the fact that families cannot always, they don't have the resources to protect their child in that way, right? So I think that your organization is definitely helping, kind of let everyone in this big thing, right? Making sure that everyone has protection, right? And I think you're right. It definitely needs to be more spread, because, when I was doing research on this, I looked up, Guardian Ad Litem Institute, and yours was the first one that came up. And so, I was thinking like, are there other, and obviously there are other like advocacy programs out there, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of, Guardian Ad Litem institutes, right, that kind of help specialize in this. I think that it should be growing. Yeah.
We're it for the entire state of Oklahoma. If we can't take your case, you have no option if you don't have any money.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sad. I mean, and so the bigger picture was, to have enough money to have satellite offices all over the state, because technically we're a statewide organization, but, we're human. We can only do so much. And so really there needs to be, the institute all over the state, free services mm-hmm. for children.
Yeah.
Not just there, I love capitalism. I think it is great, but it does end up with the wealthy have everything.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
children of the wealthy, they can, because you can ask the judge to appoint a private attorney as a guardian ad litem and pay them, right?
Mhm.
They're a lawyer, you pay them their fee. And so you've got wealthy families who mom pays a lawyer, dad pays a lawyer, and mom and dad both contribute to the lawyer for their children.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so if you're in a wealthy family, your children can have representation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. All children deserve it.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the more access people have, it can really make a change in our society, because the children are our future, and we really want to make sure that they are healthy and happy, right? So that, it really is just one step forward in making society a better place. And I think that's why this institute is just extremely important, and I think that this should definitely be, not only a statewide kind of organization, but I think it needs to be spread all over the country. I think everybody needs to, because yeah, capitalism, while I like it too, there is definitely issues with it as well. And so I think acknowledging, the lower class and things like that all over the country it can really help our society in a better way. So, well, Sharon, I don't have any more questions for you. I think you answered everything pretty perfectly. Is there any questions you may have for me?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
I appreciate it though.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I was worried that you weren't going to be able to. You're just so busy and all that, but I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of listen to me rant, and hopefully the interview was satisfactory enough. I'm definitely trying, but yeah. So I think if that's it, I really appreciate it. So all right, well, take care, Sharon. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good weekend and a good Halloween.